Hey everybody, it's Jenny Matthews here, and it's still OCD week, and I am putting out another video today to talk about effective treatment for OCD. I'm going to apologize in advance. I am getting over a chest cold or something, and I tend to cough a lot. I'm going to try not to, but I might be taking sips of water here to help mitigate that. So, all right, I'm going to try and keep it as short and sweet as possible. Effective treatment for OCD involves CBT, specifically using exposure and response prevention. I think this is really important to highlight because many therapists use CBT in their practices but aren't trained specifically with exposure and response prevention, also known as ERP, which is the component of treatment that is absolutely necessary for OCD and really helpful for other anxiety disorders as well. So basically, exposure is kind of like what it sounds. So exposure is facing your fear, but then that response prevention part is basically meaning that we resist the urge to engage in the compulsive behavior. So both of those are really important for effective treatment: exposure and not engaging in the compulsive behavior. Okay, so let me walk through an example of how this might look. I'm going to give an example with an OCD theme that's not very commonly talked about, in the media or movies, because what we generally see, I think, in those instances are like OCD looking like people who have, symmetry-related OCD or contamination. Those are what we see and talk about a little bit more, but there's actually a lot of other subtypes of OCD that just don't get talked about. So I'm going to talk about one that's under the theme of harm OCD, which basically means that this person is fearful of basically harming somebody else or themselves. They don't want to, but it's a fear of theirs. So in this particular example, I'm going to give the example of the fear of losing control, snapping, and killing somebody. So there are two different types of exposures that we could do. There's in vivo and there's imaginal. So I'll give some examples of both. So with in vivo, this is something we can physically do, like a physically live exposure. So some examples of this would be, let's look at where this person might be avoiding knives or any other kind of, could be a weapon or other things. And let's actually just stop avoiding for now. So in this case, this person could have removed all the knives from their home, or they could be locked up. So we would have somebody actually start by putting them back where they would normally go, like in your drawer or in the knife block. So just doing that is exposure in itself and learning to tolerate that. And so I should back up and say that we would first start in treatment by making a list of the various exposures we would do. And we'd have a client rate how much fear this would give them or anxiety on a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being the worst. We don't want to start by flooding somebody. So we wouldn't start, somewhere where if they're rating it like 8, 9, or 10, we want to start slow and help people get used to tolerating the anxiety and distress. So we would start with, wherever they fall. So I'm going to throw out some examples, but obviously the ranking could vary per person. So somebody might start then, start using knives in the home. When they're preparing meals, that could be an exposure. They might then prepare meals using knives with another person in the room. They might also start to just practice saying words that might trigger the fear, like saying words like kill or stab, murder, manslaughter. They could post those words, around their house as reminders, so you're constantly getting that exposure. Other things you could do are, again, watching the news where there could be lots of stories about murders, could be watching horror films or documentaries about serial killers. Those are all examples of things people can do to be physically confronting the fear. Okay, another type of exposure is called imaginal, which is really helpful in a lot of different ways, but it's really helpful for those fears that feel too scary to confront. in person right away. It could be something that's completely impossible to actually confront because maybe it's something that happens in the future, or it's really not safe to, physically do the exposure. There's a lot of other really good reasons too, but basically we would want to write and or record a script of somebody basically giving a play-by-play of their worst fear coming true. So in this case, it could be this person completely losing control and stabbing their partner. And I would have them go into as much detail as possible about, what it was like, how they felt during, before, during, after, what everybody around them thought of them, what consequences happened, how their life went afterwards, and really kind of play that out as vividly as possible. And you have them listen to that, as much as they can. And so the whole point here is to, again, really get somebody to expose themselves, really face that fear, not be running from it. And our goal here isn't to disprove the OCD, that they'd actually never do it, because OCD won't work with that. It's only gonna want to, it's gonna say, yeah, but I could. Or if you try to give somebody reassurance, no, you wouldn't actually do that. Think about what a great person you are. You're only really feeding the OCD. So we actually want to kind of side with the OCD and go, yeah, I could do that. And let's pretend that I did. What would my life look like? And how would I cope and deal with that? And so you actually kind of want to take control of OCD in that way by saying, all right, I'm not going to avoid you. I'm actually going to go with you on this and let these thoughts be here. So you're really working on changing your relationship with the OCD, and not necessarily trying to prove that it's wrong. Okay, I hope that's helpful. So again, that's a little wrap up of what exposure might look like in treatment for OCD. Stay tuned tomorrow because I'll be doing my own exposure. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You'll have to watch and find out. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.